Have a seat on your porcelain throne. It's time to talk some shit on the Powell movement.
Welcome to the Powell movement. I'm your host, Mike Powell, and I'm back home for 2 days after the Outside Festival. And what a trip Denver was. I'm still reeling after the incredible event that Outside put on. If you haven't heard my podcast on the event, check it out. You'll hear all that went on. Well, I tried to get involved on a larger scale with the event this year. That didn't happen. But you better believe that I'll be working to be more involved next year. While Outside had great programming, I know that I can add value and make it even better. Whether that happens or not, thank you to all the folks at Outside. You crushed it. I was stoked to be a part of it. Now that that's out of the way, I'm not going to bore you with a long intro, as I need to get this recorded and then get my shit together for Vegas in the morning. I'm meeting up with my high school buddy Steve and heading to Vegas to see The Dead. I'm so psyched to see these shows, and since I'm pretty sure it's the last time we're going to see them, I'm going to go big. Please wish me luck. But you're not here to hear about my Vegas trip or hear about the limited edition Powell Movement t-shirt that features the insane art of Jeremy Baytall that you can buy from my website. You're here for a podcast. And this week it's back to snowboarding. While Lucas Foster's story won't be defined by one trick, when he landed the first Alley Oop Double McTwist in the pipe, his life changed forever. It was the shot heard around the snowboarding world, and while Lucas has been on the radar for a bit, he's becoming a threat. And we talk about that on the podcast. Before we get into it, I want to ask you to tell a friend about the show and share my posts on social media. Both those things really do help the show grow, and it's greatly appreciated. Finally, I want to ask you to support the brands that sponsor this show. I only work with the best, and they are Peter Glenn Ski and Sports, Liquid Force, Best Day Brewing, Elon Skis, Stanley, and Outdoor Research. Now, it's time to chat with Lucas Foster. You just posted about Home Break and Steamboat, and that was your good friend Taylor Gold's deal. Can you tell us what that event was all about?
So I think it started, last winter. Taylor, he quit competing last year in 2023, and he's just had like the sickest career, and he's one of my all-time just favorite snowboarders and shred mentors. And he had this like modified pipe idea that he wanted to do, and Steamboat is his hometown. So he started doing Home Break, which, basically he gets to build this crazy modified pipe and invite some of us. And it's basically like Peace Park or Peace Pipe, but like in our eyes, way sicker because it's like all of us and we get to do what we want to do. And so this was the second year of it. And this year was with a 22-foot pipe instead of an 18. And basically we just spent like a week getting to experiment with this thing and just like see what's possible and transition snowboarding, just because we're all half pipe riders, but there's so much more that we can do than just go back and forth in a 5-hit pipe. So there'll be more coming out from all that later in the year for sure.
And the funny thing is that you say a 5-hit pipe. I wasn't going to touch on this till way later on in the podcast, but the way that you ride and the amplitude, for lack of a better term, that you get, it seems like it carries you down a little bit further than a lot of the other riders. And a lot of your runs seem to be 4-hit runs instead of 5-hit runs. Does that ever mess with your scoring because you're not getting the extra hit in there?
Yeah, sometimes, and sometimes not. I mean, I've had times where it hasn't affected my score at all, and then times where it has for sure. But no, I think the judges these days kind of get it. Like if you're going really big in a 4-hit run, that you should be rewarded equally as well as like a 5-hit run with average amplitude. So I don't know. It can go either way depending on like the judging panel. You never know these days is what I've kind of realized. You just embrace it.
Okay. And then back to Home Break. So are you involved with like the brainstorming of building the cool features into the pipe, or does Taylor do all that, set it up and get it dialed? Then you come in, you're like, holy shit, this is going to be rad.
Yeah, I think Taylor definitely does like the majority of the brainstorming. We'll definitely give input in the summer or in the fall. I know like when we got there, we definitely gave some input just after like day one of just like, this works, this doesn't work. And like Taylor's super open to stuff, and we can't like do a ton of modification, but like no one really wants to, because someone like Taylor, we like know is going to do a good job.
And when you go to an event like this with your crew and people that you like and respect, Does it make it a lot more fun that you don't have to throw the high-risk tricks that you're going to have to throw in a contest and finals, but you can just focus on style and making shit look good?
Yeah, totally. I think it's a good mix of things just because I think an event like Home Break or a project like that with like these never been done features, you want to do like the craziest shit you can possibly think of. But it's like a mix of that also with like, oh, I've been competing all season. I just want to cruise. So it's a good like blend of it. I think we definitely had some days that week where we just were cruising and having fun. And then days where we had like gnarly 2 hour power hour sessions, just going as hard as we could. So you kind of turn it on when you need to, but it's on your own terms. That's what's nice is you can turn it on when you want to and when you feel it rather than when like the FIS TD wants to tell you go.
Yeah,
So that's great.
totally. And then, when FIS TV tells you to go, you have to put it all on the line. And outside of this event, you've gone bigger than anyone, I guess, at Dew Tour. I think like 19 feet, 9 inches was the highest recorded, and that was you at Dew Tour this year. That's out of a 22-foot pipe. What's the biggest you think you've ever gone out of a pipe?
I don't know. I think that Dew Tour hit was probably my biggest hit. I think maybe 20, like 28.5 feet. I don't know. I think I've done the double McTwist probably a little bigger than I did at Dew Tour, but not by much. I mean, we ride pipes that kind of cater to bigger airs, like in locks and sauce. So I've probably gotten like a hair bigger, but maybe not much.
So you're getting 42 feet in the air pretty much when you think of a 22-foot pipe and you're going 20 feet above that. Have you ever pushed off and gone to flat? Like, I mean, I'm sure it's the biggest nightmare ever. But when you're going that big, does that ever happen?
Yeah, for sure. That's kind of one thing I'm known for is like being able to land low. Like, I don't know. I've kind of been known for that. Like early in my career, I was super good at landing super low and being able to maintain speed. I still have my moments here and there, but luckily it's kind of tapered off. But that sucks.
Yeah, I can't imagine anything worse, but there is something worse. How about decking? When you're 20 feet above a pipe and you're spinning and you have no visual of where the deck is, and then you splat, like, what's the worst of that for you?
Yeah, I mean, decking I think is for sure the worst. That luckily, like if you land low, if you're strong, you can stomp it and ride away. But yeah, decking, there's no good scenario. I've had my fair share of decks for sure, and it sucks. I mean, if you land like on your backside wall, on your butt, called a Roman chair, like that just never ends good. It just sucks.
I never knew it was called a Roman chair, and yeah, that sounds like it's miserable. But when you're learning new tricks, do you start with like an airbag or a foam pit or a powder day? How does it go for you? Because you came up at a place that didn't really have a big half pipe for you to learn anything. So you had to learn it at contests, either in training or prelims or during your actual finals runs, you're learning tricks. But when you learn new tricks these days, do you have a set way of learning it? Like, I'm going to go to the airbag, to the pit, to take it to snow?
Yeah, these days for sure. Like if you have access to those airbags, they're amazing. Like the airbags are a double-edged sword for sure, where like I've gotten hurt on the airbag before, but I've also like made all these tricks come together on the airbag. So yeah, like I think these days I'll go to Sauce, for example, and they have a really good airbag set up and you'll learn a trick on that or like refine a trick on that and then take it to the pipe. The airbags have gotten way better like in the last 3-4 years. So I think you can really trust them more. Back in the day, it was a lot harder to like figure those out. But the tricks also were easier, in 2016, 2017.
I mean, it's crazy how everything's progressed, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, you never go try a triple in the pipe like cold turkey without an airbag. So they're nice. Like people can try to act like they suck, but like they probably saved many lives for sure.
So no one looks at airbags or anything like that as cheating. It's just being smart about training.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you can do it without an airbag, you get like cool points or whatever. But like these days, it's like you can't get away with not hitting the airbag unless you're doing like, I mean, for example, like with like a backside 1260, I learned that on a jump first, and then the pipe airbag took me like 3 or 4 days on the airbag to figure it out, and then went to the pipe. So if you overuse the airbag, then it's cheating. But if you use it like a normal fair amount of times, then it's okay. Then people won't give you shit.
All right, and speaking of cheating, doping is a thing, and while most snowboarders or skiers who have doping issues, they have them with weed, have you ever experienced a competitor on steroids or something else they've used to be like a performance-enhancing drug?
No, nothing yet.
Because I would think, like in cycling, doping's expected, but with snowboarding, there is no win-at-all-costs mentality. And I would think if you caught a dude cheating, they would be immediately banned from the traveling circus of brothers almost and ostracized. But that just doesn't happen.
Not that we know of. There's been like cases of people testing positive for some weed, and like it turns into this thing where they whatever get like a warning, but there's never been like, oh, this guy's been pumping crazy steroids and learned 500 tricks. Nah, not yet.
Well, that's enough about cheating. Let's talk about you being born and raised in Telluride. I know you weren't actually born in Telluride. You're like an hour outside of Telluride, but I've never been there, unfortunately. But it looks like a place out of a postcard, like the coolest ski town in Colorado. How is Telluride different than the other Colorado resorts?
Yeah, it's a beautiful place. It looks just like Switzerland or the Alps. And yeah, I mean, it's different just because it's so isolated. It's really like far out of the way. It's nowhere close to Copper or Breck or Keystone or anything. 4.5 hours southwest, or more like 5 or 6 of all that stuff. And it's just like a really, isolated little village up in the mountains. And yeah, you're just in this bubble, and it's like this really small, tight-knit community, which is really cool. And yeah, I mean, I grew up there kind of in like the golden era of Telluride, where it was not too blown out yet by tourists, but still like on the map and cool and everything, and like really cool ski scene. But yeah, it was still pretty like ruled by the locals for sure. And yeah, like all the kids there my age, we all got into skiing super young. Like I think I was like 18 months old when I started skiing. And that was just kind of the life, like for all of us. We just were a bunch of little like preschoolers just going skiing all the time. But since it was a bubble, we didn't know anything about competing or the Olympics or X Games. It was just skiing or snowboarding. Like I started snowboarding when I was 8, but yeah, like my early days was just skiing. I didn't know anything about anything in the outside world. It was like you're on another planet. It's still like that. Like people in Telluride still don't really get even what I do. It's pretty funny, but I love that place to death.
I would think that's the nice part about Telluride, is it's so different than everywhere else, and they're not as plugged into the mainstream as everything else. And you're in Telluride because your folks love the mountains. Your dad's a snowboarder and a mountain biker. Does your mom ride as well?
Yeah, my mom snowboarded a lot when I was younger, not as much anymore, but she's a great athlete. She was a competitive gymnast for her teenage years, and then gymnastics coach when I was a kid. So I was like surrounded by, my dad being a snowboarder, my mom being a gymnast, and, I had the trampoline in the backyard, and I had the life set. I was super stoked.
And so the folks get you into skiing. You're like 1 year old when you do that. And you're not one of those kids that would take powder days off of school. Growing up, it was pretty much you were a weekend warrior. So weekends and holidays, was that the only time you were on the mountain?
Yeah, pretty much. The school in Telluride had this program called Ski PE. I think a lot of mountain towns have it, but we would go out once a week for like 6 weeks out of the year, where the kids would go to ski school. So I would get to do that on top of the weekend stuff. But yeah, I mean, age, whatever, 1 or 2 to like 16 years old, it was just weekend warrior. We would do a lot of like after school riding. I remember school would get out at like 3:00. The mountain would be open till 4. There's a little group of us that would go take like 2 or 3 laps after school. So we would literally like go and ride any chance we could get.
How far do you grow up from the actual mountain? Like how long did it take you to get geared up and get on the lift?
From school, it was like 2 minutes, literally like 3 or 4 blocks. My friend Cedar Palmer, who's a total Telluride legend, and his dad is a ski legend in that area, they would pick us up from school. His dad would pick us up and take us to the mountain. We would get ready in the car. That was like a minute turnaround time. From my house, though, it was probably like 15, 20 minutes.
Okay. And when you think about these mountain towns, I mean, it costs usually a good amount of money to live in a mountain town or to live 15 minutes outside of the mountain. What do your parents do for money?
My dad works at the Sheridan Chop House, which is this hotel and restaurant. And he's been bartending there for like the last probably like 20 years now, almost 20 years. I mean, he's been bartending in Telluride since day one. He moved there in 94. And these mountain towns, I mean, you can crush at bartending. So he's been doing that literally the whole time.
So he's a true ski bum.
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, he's how old now? He's like 56 and still living like the life of a 22-year-old, which is super cool. And so he's been doing that. And then my mom was working for the courthouse for like 10 years. She was the county clerk, like running the elections. And then now she's working for the fire district. So she's been doing stuff just kind of like within the county. So yeah, like they live different lives for sure. Like my dad's a ski bum. My mom kind of works more office style and she lives a little farther outside of town. But yeah, like they got into Telluride at a really good time. Like before it was like $10 million to like drink water.
Right.
So they got lucky there.
So you switched from skiing to snowboarding when you're 8 years old. But when you're growing up, there's also team sports in the world. Did you play any of those?
I dabbled very little, like soccer when I was like, I don't know, 6 or 7. I think I got kicked out of soccer just because I was trying to like freestyle it too much. I sucked at team sports. I was really bad at all ball sports. Still am. So yeah, like I never got into it really. That's why skiing and snowboarding and skateboarding was such like home for me because I just could not find my groove within team sports at all.
Do you start skateboarding pretty much right about the same time that you start snowboarding?
Yeah, I skated the summer before I started snowboarding. So the skateboarding foundation helped me figure out snowboarding a little quicker.
Are you skating street, park, vert? What do they have in Telluride for you to actually skate?
Back then they had like a little wooden street park with some mini ramp and like a pyramid, really like crappy basic stuff, but like really good for learning. And then they had a bigger skate park built by Grindline that was really fun, like really gnarly, but like super good for like stepping up into transition. It was mainly transition there though. Like there was some street stuff, but like you go to Telluride and like now we have a really sick transition park, like just all flowy bowls. So I skated a bit of everything. Like I had my days where I was like super into street skating and like figured out a lot of street stuff, but now I'm definitely more into transition and skating vert and stuff like that.
You know, by the time you're 11 years old, you're progressing in skate and snow, and life should be so easy for you at this point. But I think this is also around the time that your folks split up. And I've experienced that too, but I was like 18, so it was a lot easier for me. But when that happens to you, does it mess you up at all?
Yes and no. I mean, it was super crappy for sure. Like it's one of those things where like life happens and looking back, it's not something that's like super out of the ordinary. But yeah, like I had to face some pretty like adult situations at a young age. So it forced me to grow up quick, which benefited me now. But back then it sucked for sure just to like come home and to like have to be like a kid, but also, you know, trying to really balance this family life. But it definitely pushed me on my snowboard and my skateboard. That was kind of when it was like, I have to crush it at this stuff to like keep a peace of mind. It was like a phase. It was like a 4 or 5 year like crappy period here and there, but like it all worked out fine in the end.
It's one of those things where you can make a couple different choices. You can spiral into darkness, or you can say, I'm just going to put my whole life into the passions that I have and build my self-esteem and self-confidence through those. And is that kind of what happened with skateboarding and snowboarding? Is that you put everything into those, blocked everything out going on with the family, and that was your focus for a few years?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think it was even before they split up. Like I had a hard time just finding like where I fit with school and with life in general as like a 9 and 10-year-old. I mean, as a 9 and 10-year-old, you're not supposed to know where you're going to fit in. But back then, like everyone was playing team sports and like all these cliques were forming.
And you were the little kid too, right?
Oh yeah, totally. Like I'm the youngest kid in my grade, the smallest kid, all these like groups of friends are forming. And like I had friends for sure, but like I never belonged to like a group of people that did something. So like I just didn't know where to go. So like skateboarding and snowboarding, it was like, if I don't crush it, and when I say crush it, I mean like if I'm not like the actual GOAT at this stuff, my mind basically was saying like, you're done, like you're screwed if you don't crush it at this stuff. So yeah, it was like every day I'm at the skate park, every day I'm snowboarding, putting out everything I could on YouTube, Instagram, and it was good times for sure. Like I look back to those times and like I'm glad it all happened like that because it made me really like push myself harder than I ever would have.
It's time for my first sponsor break, and I'm so stoked to have Liquid Force as a partner. Liquid Force has been supplying the world with the best wake gear since 1995, and that premium gear, the wake, park, boat, surf, and foil boards, are not just equipment, they're a statement that screams, I'm not just in this for the activity, this is my lifestyle. While Liquid Force boards are packed with technology that will make anyone from the first timer to the up-and-coming pro a better rider, they don't throw all that in your face. You feel that tech when you ride, and you'll find all the details around the tech on their website. But Liquid Force takes pride in creating a fun, inclusive culture that encourages everyone to escape the drama of everyday life and have some fun on the water. To make your summer better than ever before, Head on over to liquidforce.com and see what I'm talking about. If you find something you like, I'm going to save you 15% with my one-time usage code. At checkout, enter the code POWEL15. That's all capital letters, the number 15 with no spaces, and you'll get that discount when you check out. My next sponsor is Peter Glenn Ski and Sports. Summer is right around the corner, and based on the past couple of years, it's going to get really, really hot. And getting in the water is the perfect way to enjoy the heat. But you need to do it right. And Peter Glenn is your one-stop shop for all of your needs this summer. Think wakeboard, water ski, kneeboard, tubes, swimwear. They have everything to make your summer more fun and functional. Peter Glenn has all the brands, all the products, a knowledgeable staff, a best-in-class website if you can't make it into their stores, and a low price guarantee. That's right. If you find a lower price on a product that Peter Glenn is selling at a reputable dealer, call up Peter Glenn, let them know that price. They will match that for you. That really does help support the show by buying from Peter Glenn, and they're going to give you free shipping on orders of $50 or more. Peter Glenn isn't one of those big guys trying to take over the industry. They're the mom and pop shop that you've trusted to get your gear you need at the best prices for over 70 years. To find out more, head on over to peterglenn.com. My final sponsor this round is Best Day Brewing. And while I love the taste of a good beer, I don't always need the alcohol. I mean, my life revolves around driving my kid places, running errands, interviewing people, and all of these things I do better when I don't have a head full of alcohol. These days, when I'm not partying, I still like to enjoy an ice-cold beer, and that's where Best Day Brewing comes into play. I love their hazy IPA, the Kolsch that you can get on all Alaska airline flights, their Electro Lime Cerveza, which is the first Mexican-style NA beer that I've loved, and their new white Belgian style. They're all just so amazing and have just as much flavor as any alcoholic beer you're going to find. And they average about 60 calories a beer, and they won't get you in trouble. That's when I'm not partying. And when I am partying, I mix in a few Best Days throughout the night, and I found that by doing that, I can stay out until last call. You should try it. To have the best day or night ever, head on over to bestdaybrewing.com and get 15% off your first order. And if you make that order over $50, we'll throw in free shipping. You can thank me later. Those are my sponsors. Now let's jump back into the podcast. When you think about that age, this is when a lot of people are getting into the culture of these sports. And you're a skateboarder and a snowboarder. Are you getting into the movies and do you have athletes that you look up to? Or is it more that you're just into the sports and you don't even worry about the culture around it?
When I was younger, I didn't care at all. Age 8 to 11, I would watch X Games and the Olympics, but I didn't care at all. Really, I would just be oh wow, cool. But I think when I was a little older, when I started really getting into the USASA events and stuff, that's when I was exposed to actual pro snowboarding. So yeah, I remember just watching Louie Vito, the Living Louie Vito Red Bull series nonstop for years. So yeah, guys like Louie Vito, Danny Cass, man, I mean the Friends crew, Luke Matrani, Danny Davis, Jack Matrani, all those guys. And then a lot of skateboarders too. I mean, I was just as much of a skateboarder as I was a snowboarder. So guys like Pedro Barros, Grant Taylor, when I wasn't snowboarding or skating, I was just nonstop consuming it over movies, YouTube, everything.
So do you like skateboarding better than snowboarding?
I think I probably like the culture a little more. Back then, I probably skated more than I snowboarded, honestly, because I didn't go to the summer camps at all when I was younger. But no, I mean, I think I like them equally. I think skateboarding has stuff that snowboarding doesn't and vice versa. So I'm cool with them both.
And like you said, you didn't go to the summer camps as a kid because that shit's expensive. But I did read that you won a week to Woodward Copper. Was that place like going to Disneyland for you?
Yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, I won that. And it was cool because I got access to the foam pit in the barn. And all I wanted to do at that week, I remember, was learn doubles because it was I have the foam pit and I have a jump on the mountain. So I was super stoked for that. It wasn't anything crazy, though, because it's a small park. They don't have any crazy jumps. It's not like Windell's or High Cascade or New Zealand or anything, but it was still really cool to just get to ride for the summer. And I looked at it just as okay, this is a chance for me to go and learn something.
When you go to Woodward or any contest, really, is that the only chance that you'd get to ride a half pipe?
Summer camp, there's no half pipe. There's no pipe in the summer at all. But yeah, age 10 to 17 was, yeah, show up, kind of practice day, warm up and figure out how to ride the pipe again. And then, yeah, basically my whole career till I made the rookie team for the US team was a lot of show up and figure it out. I had a few chances when I was like 15, 16 to go ride during like BK Pro sessions from Bud Keen.
Okay.
Basically, I made a good connection with Bud when I was younger, and he would let me come ride the camp for free and like coach me a little bit, but nothing too crazy just because I wasn't paying.
But he's like the most legendary coach in snowboarding.
Oh, yeah, totally. Like if I didn't have Bud, I wouldn't have really gotten into pipe how I did. So that was cool. Like I did have like a few random, super random like times I would get to go ride pipe, like at Copper for like 5 days or go to Mammoth for like 5 days.
What's crazy to me is that before we can even think about going on all these trips, you're in high school and you did high school pretty quickly. I'm going to get it out of the way quickly like you did. You did your first 2 years of high school like a normal high school student. How did you convince your folks to let you homeschool?
Oh, that was a long journey to get them to be down. But basically, like I would bring it up probably for like whatever, a couple years, like middle school and high school. And they'd always just be like, no way. And then finally, like after the first year of doing the rev tours and like just seeing where the level was going, I'm like, there's no way I'm going to make it if I'm like going to school 5 days a week. So I don't know. I think I basically looked into everything myself and was just like, okay, these are the schools I could go to, and like basically brought them like everything on like a platter of just like, this is the school I'll go to. This is when I can do my work. This is when I would graduate. This is my plan, and basically convinced them on the spot. I think they were down. They just didn't want to like have to look into it all for me. So I just took it upon myself to do that and started, Colorado Goal Academy when I was 16. So I did 11th and 12th grade on that school. And I remember that school like shut down for some weird reason, like middle of my senior year. And that senior year was a disaster. I mean, that's when I started traveling a ton and I did not give a shit about school. I finished and graduated and got my diploma, but I still like brought everything to them, and that's how I convinced them to be down with it.
If you would have continued with normal high school, would you have had any chance to be where you are today?
Yeah, I think I would have had a chance, but it would have been a longer journey and I probably would have given up a lot sooner. Like, I mean, there were several moments within my career where I definitely was like, yeah, I'm probably done after this year. So I think that moment would have come like and been for real probably a lot quicker back then, for sure.
When you say there's a couple times in your career where you thought you were done, was it just those years where you hadn't made the US team and you were putting everything into it and it was almost like everybody else's life was starting, all your friends were going to college and doing all this stuff and you just didn't know where you were in life?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I never really like had the moment where I was like, what am I doing with life? But I think when I was like 17, 18, I was like, okay, I'm kind of past the point where I could make the US team. What am I doing? I knew I could keep snowboarding and like I had opportunities for sure when I was like 16, 17, but it was like a lot less of a golden pot at the end of the tunnel. It was just more gray areas. So yeah, like I just didn't know what direction I was going to go in really. It was such a up in the air every year. Some years I was super good at slopestyle, some years super good at halfpipe. Some years I was just like, screw both of them.
So at this point, while you're a sophomore or junior in high school, I feel like that's the time that you get on the Monster Army, which is huge. It's not the full-on team, though. Can you describe how you get on like the Monster Flow program and what that was all about?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I was like 15 probably or 16 when I got on the program at first. And yeah, it's like based in like levels. I think I got in at like level 2 or 4. And basically, yeah, like I got on the Army program and then when I was like 17, 18, I finally got like a real contract, which, you know, there comes a point in Monster Army where you like are getting fully paid. And it's just like an energy drink sponsor, like a Red Bull or a Rockstar. You're just kind of like on their team, on the Monster Army team, promoting Monster Army. So yeah, like, I mean, Monster Army, that was like one of the biggest helps in my career by far, still is. I'm still on it right now. They've been crushing it and doing it a lot for me. So I'm super hyped on that.
Well, since I brought up sponsors, you listen to the podcast, so you know that I like to talk about money, and I'm going to get through this part now. And when you think about your board sponsor, was Salomon the first brand to hook you up, and how did that come together?
Yeah, they were. I think GNU sent me a board when I was really little, when I was like 10 or 11, because my dad was a big LibTech fan. But yeah, Salomon was my first like real flow hookup, and that was through Mike Nauman, actually, who's now like the digital marketing manager at Salomon. He lived in Telluride and ran the snowboard shop there, and he basically knew the Salomon rep and put us in touch. And That was Matt Lufkin, and he started sending me boards every season. And then as I got older, got like more in-house with them through Kevin Stevenson. And yeah, he's the man. He's been hooking me up ever since then. And yeah, Solomon's been super good to me. I'm hyped to still be on that.
The thing with Solomon, which happens to a lot of French companies, I feel like, at least in the States, is like they had an amazing team. And I mean, they still do. But like at one point, it's like Gren Diesel, Bodie, Louis Few, Desiree Hans, some huge names in snowboarding. But I rarely see Solomon boards anywhere. Why has it been so hard to make Solomon cool in the US?
I don't know. I think lately I see them a lot these days within Colorado, at least. The Huck Knife Pro is honestly like one of the most popular park boards that I've seen on the mountain. But I don't know. I think Solomon like had to find their like really sick all around board to really get to where they're at now, I guess. Like back then they had the Villain, the Assassin, like they just stepped it up a bit with their boards in general. So I think now that they have like a real long lineup of amazing boards, they're more popular, and I think they'll hopefully just keep stepping it up for sure.
What other brands pay you to snowboard?
So Solomon, Monster, Cup Noodles.
That's sick. Like Cup of Noodles?
Yeah, Cup Noodles, ramen. Yeah, those guys are sick. That's a random sponsor that came along, but they are like super hyped on action sports. They sponsor Street League. They were sponsoring WSL. They're like trying to make a big push. So I'm super hyped on that. And Smith Optics, Q Mile, which is a Korean outerwear company, Christie Sports, and Hana, which is a supplement company, and Sandinista Tequila. So I'm super lucky with the sponsors, and they take good care of me. So thank you to those guys big time. And the US Snowboard Team too.
And snowboarding is not about money. We know this, but when you're a pro, you need to get paid. You're an Olympian who puts his life on the line every time that you compete. Can you make a couple $100,000 a season doing that?
Yeah, you can. I haven't made like a couple hundred, but on a good year, you can for sure make a good living, make enough to like pay the bills and set money aside. And I think it's up and down for everybody. But yeah, like I've been taken care of good. I'm hyped I can say that. I know some people that should get a lot more that don't, so it sucks. Like it could go either way.
Totally. Well, I've gotten way ahead of myself, but I love talking about the money part. But once you get the homeschool thing going, I think that's when you go out on your first tour, because it sounds like you were snowboarding in Arizona.
Yeah. So there's this company called Overthrow Clothing that I rode for, and that company was super sick. I mean, they were like a small brand out of Flagstaff or Phoenix. I can't remember exactly where they were from in Arizona, but this like small, just apparel brand, streetwear brand, like really nice clothes. Yeah, they started a team, and the team was me, Buzz Holbrook, and Shred Mamba, and those two were from Bear Mountain, so they're like kind of like some Bear street guys, and they would do like the Overthrow tour every winter, and they would usually go to like Flagstaff, which was Snow Bowl Resort in Arizona, and then Telluride and a few other random resorts. But we did that for like 2 years, and I mean that was super fun. That was like the first time I got to like go on a paid trip. I was like 16 the first tour we went on, and yeah, they like let my mom come and got us a whole hotel room set up, everything, and it was just like the coolest experience for me at the time. And it was just like filming basically a bunch of park edits, and yeah, that was super fun. Overthrow was like my first real sponsor that like paid for stuff and like hooked me up big time.
Nice. Well, I will say one of the most important parts of your career was finding the right mentor. How do you end up connecting with Jason Cannon, and what influences he had on your riding and as a person?
Oh man, I mean, he's definitely been like my biggest mentor by far throughout my whole career. I met Jason in Telluride. He lived in Telluride at the time. And he coached Harry Carney and Hagen Carney, and both are pro snowboarders now. Hagen's on the US Bordercross team. Harry's like the best bank slalom snowboarder ever. Youngest winner of the LBS bank slalom. He's on the Jones team. Just an amazing free rider all in all, and good person. But those two were like the two snowboarders in Telluride that actually like did something. No one else really did a thing. So those guys were like the coolest people in the world to me. And I knew that Jason coached them. So I like kind of put my foot in Jason's door, like when I was younger, hoping that he would like be down to help me out someday. Then yeah, like basically long story short, he told my parents like, yeah, I can help Lucas out a bit. And like, I don't even know how to describe Jason like briefly, but he Had a crazy story as a pro snowboarder, did a lot, but had like a big kind of just disaster within his life and his snowboard career and everything. And it got him super into holistic wellness and just like,
He had a big accident, right?
yeah. He shattered his femur and then just had like gnarly adrenal fatigue and just all sorts of other health problems. And he got super into, like, he was a big kung fu practitioner, and then also, the holistic wellness stuff. And basically he went to a bunch of different institutes, studied with a bunch of experts in like holistic wellness, functional medicine, strength and conditioning. And now he's just like the most badass, like, trainer, nutritionist, mentor, lifestyle coach, everything. But he just basically like took me when I was 14, 15 and just looked at me and was like, hey, I know you like have this dream and you want to make it. Like, you need to fix all these things and we need to like get better at X, Y, and Z, and gave me like actual direction on what to do, which is really what I needed, because Telluride had no like program for competitive athletes at all. And like, he knew plenty about snowboarding to know like what I needed, not only from a physical perspective, but like also in a career perspective. So yeah, he like fixed my body. He fixed my mind. He took me to Baker when I was really young. I started brushing shoulders with pros there. I started like really free riding legit stuff and like doing it properly with him. And then he went to a lot of pipe comps with me and just like small comps within Telluride area. And like still to this day, like I still train with him a bit, but he gave me real direction, like I said, and put me just on this path where I cared a lot about just my well-being and like gave a shit about what I was putting into my body, how I took care of my body, how I was taking care of my mind, everything, which I think is the biggest thing these days at this high level. So without Jason, I think I would have probably quit when I was like 15.
Well, I mean, it sounds like when you're 12, 13, you've realized that you need to become the GOAT at snowboarding, at least at your mountain, and then hopefully beyond that. And you're going to do everything in your power to do it. But most kids, they would just go ride a bunch and they'd still eat junk food and still do different shit. But you went and found Jason, and then you listened to everything that he had to say. You changed your diet. You started working out, doing martial arts and different things and yoga and stuff like that. And that's all just because you knew that you needed to better yourself. And Jason was the dude that was going to help you do that.
Yeah, exactly. And I just knew too, like, I didn't have much in Telluride. I never had a pipe to ride in Telluride and rarely had good jumps. So I was like, okay, if I don't have these things, what do I have? Okay, I have a gym where I can work on my body so that when the time comes and the opportunity arises, I'm ready. Because what's the quote? Like, success is when opportunity meets preparation. I was like, I need to be prepared for when I do get in the pipe, when I do get on these big jumps, when I do get to ride at these BK pro camps and get to show what I can do in front of the US team, whatever. I need to be ready. So it was just like, take the opportunity where you can.
You have good mentors and you're doing well in the USASA stuff, but the biggest thing that happens in the early part of your career was the Quicksilver Young Guns contest. You're 17 years old, I think it's 2017. You win this internet contest. What kind of doors does the Young Guns contest unlock for you?
I think it just gave me like a lot more, I guess, exposure within the industry. I remember going to the launch, the Snowboarder Mag event, 2 weeks after I won that, and everyone kind of knew me there all of a sudden. Like, I went there the year before and I just was like this loose kid from Telluride that did not know what to do. And then there it was like everyone was super cool, super down. Pat Bridges was like extremely welcoming and super cool. And yeah, like, I think it just kind of gave me like my name to a degree where like that was my first big break, and got to go on the trip with Travis Rice. I guess it just put me out there a lot more. And yeah, that was like the first big leap I took, I think, into the snowboard industry. Like, I got invited to Super Park later that year. So it was cool. That was definitely like one of my biggest accomplishments at the time by far.
And going on a trip with Travis Rice when you're 17 and this dude is the GOAT. I mean, what's that like?
It was pretty chill, actually. Like, he was super mellow, and like we just rode Jackson. Like, we just went out kind of like side country on Jackson Hole with Travis and Andrew Mariner, who was the Quicksilver TM at the time, and my dad too. I got to bring my dad on that trip, which was super cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was mellow. Like, he's a super cool dude and was super welcoming and friendly. And yeah, it was sick.
It's time for my second round of sponsors, and Elan Skis doesn't need to sponsor this podcast in the summertime, but they do it because they understand the importance of cultivating the stories that make the snow industry what it is. So while they're cultivating stories off snow, On snow, Alon is building a cult following here in the US, and there are a few reasons for that. First is that the award-winning Ripstick line has proven time and again to make you a better skier. The reason why? Alon uses the best materials known to man, and that's no joke. This is the same Alon known for building award-winning luxury yachts, so there's never any cutting corners, and the fit and finish is better than anything else on the ski wall. Just look up and down and compare your Alons to anything else, and you'll see the difference. The second reason why Alon's selling more skis in the US is their Playmaker line. Yep, Alon has a line of twin tips that will go head-to-head with anything on the mountain. They're light, they're lively, and they're built better than any other twin tips on the wall. I'm skiing the 101, and it's been my daily driver for 2 years, and they're so much fun. Before you buy your next pair of skis, please demo a pair of Alons, or just head on over to alonskis.com, pick up a pair, and trust me, you're going to elevate your skiing experience. Next up, it's outdoor research, and I've been using OR products since I moved to Seattle almost 25 years ago because they outperform everything on the market. I mean, outdoor research builds products to perform in the wet, soggy, cold weather of the Pacific Northwest. And when you live where we do, you need to have the best in class, and that's what OR's always been. While OR's always been known for building the industry-leading gear for mountaineers, and they still do that, over the past few years, they've been focusing on working with their A-list athletes in the ski and snowboard world to create new fits and kits for the snow scene, which everyone has seen on X Games podiums and on legends like Mark Abma. And now, OR is launching its freewheel mountain bike collection, and there's no cutting corners here either. Well, I could tell you about it. Here's what the folks at Free Hub Magazine had to say about what OR is doing in bike. Outdoor research, with its legacy rooted in scientific inquiry and a passion for the outdoors, has once again raised the bar, offering riding gear that's not just functional, but also stylish and durable. The meticulous designs and thoughtful engineering of the Freewheel collection have the power to transform the mountain biking experience. Reviews don't get much better than that, and to see all the new products that OR has, head on over to outdoorresearch.com. My final sponsor this round is Stanley, the iconic Northwest brand that invented the category of keeping things hot and cold over 100 years ago. You remember Stanley from your grandfather's green thermos that kept his coffee hot and cold forever when he took you out on adventures. Well, Stanley still makes that bottle, and so much more. I know you know this because they are absolutely blowing up all over the world. With Stanley, you can think tumblers, water bottles, barware, camping utensils, coolers, vacuum bottles. There really is something for everyone, and you aren't going to find them overpriced like a lot of copycat designer brands that have popped up recently. Stanley is the originator, and they pride themselves on providing you with the best products at the best value. Those are my sponsors. Now let's jump back into the podcast. Based on that edit, I'd expect your career to include a little bit of everything because you're one of those dudes that does big air, slopestyle, pipe, you ride the whole mountain and do everything. But how and when did you end up specializing in halfpipe?
That was kind of like 17, 18 years old. I remember USASA Nationals. It was like kind of in my head. It was the last pipe comp I was going to do because I was pretty over it. It was right after Young Guns. I was like, oh, I'm going to go and film, ride slopestyle, like screw pipe. But I got into Nationals like super last minute for pipe. And I was like, oh, I'm there anyway. I may as well go do it. So I competed. I did pretty good. I learned 900s in practice that day and made the finals. And then finals, it was a warm day. The slush like froze up. In my second and final run, I did a front nine, first hit, the trick I learned, and basically like slingshotted because the slush froze and I went like 20 feet out on it. And I stomped it and it looked sick. And there was a clip of it and that clip kind of circulated around the internet. And then that clip made it to Spencer Tamblin, who was the US rookie team coach at the time. And he hit me up and was like, yo, I saw your front nine, super sick. He said, send me a Dropbox of your footage. I want to like keep track of your progress and see like how you progress over the next year. And then he invited me to Gold Camp that year in Mammoth that spring. It was the year before the Olympics in 2018. So I went out there and was like, okay, cool. Like just go and just see what happens. I learned double corks there. That next season, I did like okay at a few rev tours and then did one Grand Prix. And that season, I was like, I'm going to give pipe one more shot. And if I don't make the US team, I'm done. Like no questions asked. If I don't make it this year, I'm done. And I made it that year. Making the team was a pretty funny story, but I made it. So that's when I specialized. I was like, all right, if I'm doing double, like back then for a rookie to be doing doubles in the pipe was like pretty good. So I was like, okay, if I can do a double, I'm like kind of rubbing shoulders with the rookie team. Stick with it. So that was it.
What's the funny story about making the rookie team?
It was right after the Olympics, so they moved all the rookies up from that season to the pro team. So they had no rookie team. So they invited like a handful of us younger kids that were like up and coming to Mammoth to ride with the US team for like a spring camp. And that was basically like, I think their trial period of like getting familiar with some of us younger kids to see which kids should be on the rookie team. And I show up there day one of the camp and I'm hitting the airbag. This is where I got hurt on the airbag. And I do a crippler into the bag. It was like third or fourth hit of the day. I land on the bag and just like crunch my front ankle because it was like pretty dry and just airbags sometimes suck. And I just crunched my ankle, broke my ankle, like nothing bad, but like enough where I totally couldn't ride.
I mean, if it's broken, it's broken.
Yeah, totally. I left that camp. I was like, yeah, shit, I'm totally not making the team now. And then they called me like 2 weeks later and they're like, yeah, we want to nominate you to the rookie team. And I was like, okay, sick.
That's crazy. So you're doing everything you could to be done with Halfpipe, but it just kept sucking you back in. And you get on that rookie team. That's like 2019. Your first X Games is 2020. Did you have to qualify for that? Did you get an invite? How does X Games work for you?
That year they had a qualifier, like a quali round within the X Games, like an elimination, which they don't really do at all anymore.
Right.
But they invited more people that year. So it was like 16 people. And they always kind of invite people based off the comps earlier in the season. And I did pretty good at the Copper Grand Prix that December. So I think I was like 11th there. And all the people ahead of me already had X Games spots. So they literally just like went down the list of those comps, like the Copper Grand Prix and maybe one other event. That was super unexpected and just random. I mean, I was probably not ready for X Games at the time, but like, I'm not going to deny it. So that was cool. I did not do good there. I fell every run in qualies, but I got my experience in and it was super cool.
Is that embarrassing? Is it frustrating or is it just part of the game when you have every run that you'd crash on?
A mix of both. I mean, I for sure felt weird even going because I was like, damn, like there's other riders that should be in here. And I think it's something all riders deal with. Like everyone's so good these days. It's hard to really like trust that you're like in the mix. But, you know, I think back then I still had like some tricks that I could have contended with, not to make the podium, but to like get a good enough result. So I didn't like feel too bad, but I still to this day, like if I don't land a good run in a contest, I'm just like, God damn it. But no, it wasn't anything too major.
When things don't work out, or even if they do work out, do you watch video of your pipe runs and break down what you did? Or is that something for a team sport and you don't worry about video review?
I obsess for sure over video. You like maybe wait a little bit of time. Like if you have a bad day, you don't want to watch it for maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes. But no, like I definitely analyze my riding. We all do for sure. That's like the best way to really coach yourself.
And then when you think about being at a big contest like the X Games, when you get yourself in the start gate, how are you able to get yourself from like a heart pounding with adrenaline to a mind focused for the biggest runs of your life? Is there like things that you do? Do you work on breath work? Is there a way to just get into the zone, or is it every contest is different?
I'd say everyone can be a little different. Like it's best that you have a routine. Like I've kind of experimented with just about everything. Like it's like a mix of breath work and just like finding things that can get you into like a no mind state of mind where you're just not thinking about anything. So for some people it's breath. Like for me personally, like what I've seen work the best is like box breathing, where you breathe in 4 seconds and hold for 4 and then breathe out for 4, slow your heart rate down. And then you just go on like a rampage of positivity where you're just like saying, thank you for the day. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for everyone around me. When you can get yourself into that state of mind, that kind of turns you off and like gets you really excited for what's to come. Like I remember just the best contest I've had, I've been very like, screw what happens today. I'm thankful just to have lived this life so far. So whatever can get you to that point is the best.
I mean, it sounds like almost with everyone that I've had on the podcast, for the most part, I'm sure there's those outliers, but anytime they go into a contest thinking, I don't care about this contest, I don't want to do well or whatever, they win. And then whenever they go into a contest thinking like, I've got to do well, I need to make the podium, that's when things fall apart for them. Do you feel that way too? When your mind is kind of cool going into a contest, you're going to do well?
Oh yeah, totally. Like there's been plenty of events where like it really kind of mattered to do well and where I've like totally obsessed over it and it just does not work and it's the worst. But yeah, like the times where I've just let go and just accepted for like whatever's happened, like earlier in the day or in the contest season, that's when it all comes together. It's just like a matter of getting out of your own way.
Okay, and I'll fast forward a couple years, and it's the 21-22 season. The Olympics are going to be in Beijing. You've been known for being a health nut at a young age, which is rare, and Jason is probably a big credit for that, of getting you to be like that. But do you do anything differently going into that Olympic season?
Nothing really. Like a lot of the stuff I did with Jason, all the stuff really, I still do to this day. I think that season, I just had a good program going. Like how old was I? I was 21, 20 or 21, and just was like, I think I really crushed it that season with the body stuff. Like I was super solid in the gym, and Jason and I crushed it with my exercise program. So my body was like so ready just to like snowboard. It was like perfectly tuned for that season. And then my mind was in a good spot because I did well the season before at the first Olympic qualifier. So I had like enough momentum mentally to be like, okay, I'm in the mix, but enough hunger to be like, I still got to kill it and everything. So yeah, like I think I just like went on a rampage, like I said, of just like every day, just positive affirmations and just like doing good things for my body, good things for my mind. Kind of like everything I do now, but I was just super like disciplined with it that year and just like every day. Like I was young, I didn't have responsibilities. I was just like snowboard and crush it. Because at that time too, it was like if I don't make the Olympics this season, I don't know if I'll keep going. So it was the same mindset of like make it or break it.
And a cool thing that you have is the training from Jason, but another cool thing is that the US team has JJ Thomas, a former medalist and coach. And while he'll never be able to do the doubles that you do, or maybe he will, I don't know, but how does he make you a better rider?
Oh, JJ's the man. He's not the coach anymore, unfortunately, but I mean, I rode with JJ for 5 seasons and we had a good connection. Like he was my first real coach for sure. Like Jason was my mentor, like off the snow, but I never really had like an on snow coach. So JJ and I had a good bond, and he like really kind of found like what my strengths were and like made me embrace my riding. Cause there were times I just like would want to fight my own riding and try to like fit, the riding of other people. So JJ just helped me like embrace what I had and just got me at a good pace where I could like learn tricks safely and like really trust him. And yeah, like I rode with JJ when I got on the rookie team all the way till last season. And yeah, he's the man. I mean, I owe a lot to JJ.
So he helps get you to the Olympics, but the Olympic Games don't go as planned for you because I'm guessing every contest that you enter with the goal of a podium, or I would think that would be the hope at least. But can you describe your Olympic experience?
Yeah, it was kind of like a classic. Yeah, you just go in like all in. We all have to do like our best runs just to make finals these days. So I was going for like a pretty all-in run, my second and final run, and just barely clipped the deck on a front 12. And the run was going really good up until that. So like had I landed the rest of that run, it would have been a different story. But I clipped the deck on the front 12, second to last hit, and just blew up, went to the bottom. So that sucked. Like I was bummed for sure. Like I knew I wasn't going to go to the Olympics and like win, but I knew I could go and definitely make finals and probably be like top 6 or 7 range, maybe top 5 with like a crazy run if I could really like piece it all together perfectly. But it wasn't too big of like a letdown. I was just like, well, at least I went and like gave it my all.
So that's the actual contest experience, but the Olympic Games itself. I mean, going to that event is bigger than anything that you're ever going to do in your entire life, being a part of that. And I use the word emotional too much, but what's the feeling when you go into like opening ceremonies and you're representing the USA? Does it make you feel really proud, or is it just another contest, or how is that for you?
A little bit of both. I mean, I think I was like good enough at the time to know that I definitely belonged to be there. So I was like, okay, like treat this like any other contest because you could do really good here. But I also was like, that season, I definitely was not like a favorite to make the team. There were so many other insane American riders that should have made it for sure. Like, there's like Toby Miller, Chase Blackwell, Ryan Walkendorfer, Joey Okeson. These guys were all like riding so good leading into the Olympic year. And like those guys, I grew up watching all of them on the rookie team, then like watching them try to qualify for the Olympics. So it was like for me just to make the team was like crazy. So I think with that, I was like, okay, enjoy this, soak it all in. Like I remember just going there at all. I was just like, this is absolutely insane. That like I went from the Telluride kid, super loose in Crested Butte, Colorado, hitting the 18-foot pipe to like going to the Olympics less than 10 years later. So there's a mix of both where I was just like, how the hell did you do this? Like, good job. Also with like, yo, like you belong here. Crush it.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome, man. What you did after the Olympics is what snowboarders think of when they hear your name. And while I think you're the first person to land a back 1620 in competition, I think you did that in lax in 2022. You're also the first person to land an Alley Oop Double McTwist, which is just ridiculous to even say. But to actually comprehend and see what you're doing when I watch the video of it, it is insane because, you know, I snowboarded in the 90s and people didn't think like that at all in the 90s. So it is crazy to see what you did. When you do a trick like that, is it pure relief when you land something like that?
Yeah. Yeah. With the Double McTwist, for sure, it's like the scariest trick where you just don't know at all in the air. Like you don't know if you're going to land on your feet or die until you're riding away. So yeah, I mean, when I was learning the trick, it was like the craziest feeling riding away from that trick. Like I remember it vividly at Mount Hood, just riding down from the pipe to the bottom of Timberline, just like my arms just like by my side, just like what the hell just happened? So yeah.
What's the fear level like when you know you're going to throw something that is so like unfathomable?
It's for sure super scary. But it's a great mix of emotions because you're like super scared, but you click into this mode where I can't really describe it. You're like blacked out basically, and you're just like zoned in because the pain of like not trying it will be greater than the pain of falling on it. So I remember for me, I just was like, there's no one else that's going to step to this trick to see what's going to happen right now today. So like, I need to like just try it and see. Like no one's going to go and experiment for me. There's no one that can like go and show me like, oh yeah, it's good. You got it. Like you just need to get the first one out of the way just to see what happens. So like you're scared shitless for sure, but you also are like, you feel like a hero kind of going into it where you're like, it's my time.
Yeah, because if you landed, I mean, the whole world's going to know because when you put that clip up the day that you landed in Hood, it almost breaks the internet, or at least the snowboarding corner of the internet. Can you describe how crazy that was to like just see the view count go up and up? Did you know that was going to happen?
Yeah. I mean, I still think that trick, it changed my life. It changed my career, everything. That day I went from just like another US team kid, which is cool, but like went from that to the kid that did the Double McTwist. And like still to this day, it's like all people say when they see me. So I think I earned a lot of respect that day, luckily. Like I never thought it would end up like that. I knew it would be a clip that was going to be seen and people were going to be stoked on it. But honestly, I envisioned the trick being like more than what it is now. Like I want to add on to it. So at the time I was really like just thinking about the end goal, which is to add more rotation to it. But that day it was like, I need to just do this one first. So for it to like blow up like that was like crazy for me. I mean, every snowboarder I ever dreamed of growing up, like messaged me or shared it or commented on it. So it was cool. And like later that season, I think I was like on the first round of like invites for X Games that year, like people were stoked on it. So I was just super hyped that it like gave me some respect. I mean, I hate how these days it's like people think they need to go and like chase a medal to like earn respect or earn recognition in the sport. It's like you can also just go and like do something unique to yourself. So it feels like that trick was kind of that moment for me where it's like setting myself apart.
Yeah, I mean, the Young Guns, that it puts you on the map on a small way, but this puts you on the global map of like, holy shit, did you see what that guy did? And everybody had to watch it over and over again because it was so crazy. And you're the first person to land that trick in competition. You do that at Dew Tour, you get third there. While that's incredible, what's it going to take to beat dudes like Scotty James and those Japanese riders who are mind-blowing?
I think these days the switch backside tricks are like the real like secret sauce. So it'll take a really good switch backside trick with a lot of amplitude. I think like the triples for sure are like kind of a must these days, but like not necessarily. I think you can still get away with it without a triple. But I don't know, it's so hard to say because every event the judges kind of do it differently because the judging panels always change. But yeah, like basically the Japanese are on like a different level and like you have to have either like your signature like WTF trick or a switch backside trick with like 1440s or a triple. Yeah, like we have work to do for sure to beat those guys.
Dude, it's just insane what you're up against because if you think about it, I mean, the goal is to win eventually. And to win, the tricks that you need to do and learn are just insane. But that's your job and that's what you've got to do. We've been going for a little while now, and it's time for something that I call Inappropriate Questions. I get someone that you know to ask 3 questions, and they can be anything. This week, I was able to get one of those guys that you looked up to your whole life on the podcast to ask you the questions. He actually came up in the podcast. Louie Vito was the generation before you. He's an absolute killer in the pipe, one of those dudes with a work ethic that's legendary and style for days. Before we get into Louie's questions, did you attend his wedding?
No, and I'm still salty about it. But I love you, Louie. Congrats. No, I'm just kidding.
I had all these wedding questions. I thought you might have went because like Sheckler was there, Machine Gun Kelly played, it sounded like. And I would think it was the best wedding you ever went to, but you didn't go.
No invite. But Louie knows that I'm his biggest fan. So I guess Louie can like go to bed knowing that he didn't invite his #1 fan growing up to his wedding.
All right. Well, he will have to know that I actually thought you went. So I thought I was going to get some good stories. My bad. Sorry to bring that up, Louie. I didn't mean to
No, I'm totally kidding. But I didn't go to his wedding.
But I will jump into Louie's first inappropriate question. They're not very inappropriate, so I might ask some inappropriate stuff in between, but he's got some questions that he wanted to know the answers of. Here is question number 1.
You grew up watching, snowboarding. You've only known snowboarding in the Olympics and the US being so strong. Now that you are a professional snowboarder, you've gone to the Olympics. Has it been everything that you thought it would be, and where has it differed?
I think it's kind of everything. No, I mean, yeah, for sure. Like I definitely have achieved like the feelings that I dreamed of like, yeah, the feeling of going to the Olympics and like calling yourself an Olympian. I think yes and no. The no is like you make it to the top and you set new goals for yourself. So you never really lose like that feeling of trying to like make it, because now like, yeah, I've gone to the Olympics and done some stuff, but like now I want to go and get a medal and all this stuff. So you never really lose that. I think you make it into the scene and you realize everyone's really like a normal person. Like I've met guys like Louie. Louie was literally like my Michael Jordan forever, like up until like 2-3 years ago. And I really got to know him well. He still is like my Michael Jordan, but like then I realized like, okay, Louie's just another person that like eats 100 eggs a day and like sleeps in, whatever. But yeah, like there's been plenty of pros that I thought were like just as cool as Louie that were like total dicks. So yeah, like it was what I thought, but also like there are letdowns for sure. I think like the biggest letdowns are meeting some of my heroes that were just not cool or just like really boring in real life.
Yeah, no, I can see that. And that would be a letdown for anybody. I have to spin this to make this a little bit inappropriate. And so thinking about Louie, he's got like a legendary work ethic. He works out all the time. And he came up in an era where people partied in snowboarding. I mean, he was kind of the tail end of it. But for what you're doing these days, you have to have 100% focus. And any loss of focus while you're in your pipe run can mean serious injury and a lot of pain. But is there still partying and celebrating that goes on the elite snowboard level?
Yeah, there still is for sure. There's definitely, I mean, I don't know I'm sure I've heard how crazy it was back then. It's still crazy for sure, but I think it's less frequent. And I think everyone kind of goes through like a phase of that. Not everybody, but like personally, I never got like crazy into partying. Like I definitely will go to some parties and like I can show up and have fun, but I'm never like doing anything super insane at all. Definitely not. But there's a group of people for sure that can throw down and do some insane stuff. But everyone like has to click out of that mode pretty quick. Like you have to be built very different these days to like be able to go party and then go throw triple corks on snow. Not everyone can do that. So I think it's like a lot less, but it still happens. I'm definitely not one of those people. Like if I drink, I have to like chill for a bit. And like, I don't even want to step to like a snowboard after like a night of going out.
All right. Well, there are people that still do that. That is nice to know that it still happens. Let's go into question number 2 from Louie Vito. Here it comes.
You've competed at X Games. You've competed at the Olympics, Dew Tour, X Games. Everything's so different than it was. You know, we never did World Cups. Like, we did that the year before the Olympics because we had to. But now it's like the main tour is World Cup. You had one Dew Tour. You have one X Games. You didn't have Vans Triple Crown. You don't have that stuff anymore. So it's only World Cups is all you have. So it kind of like, I guess, you know, you've competed at the highest level. You just got your first podium. Where do you want to go and where do you want to take your snowboarding?
I think I definitely would love to experience that again. Like, definitely, yeah, like getting it in a World Cup or like one of these other events would be cool. But like, personally, I just want to like experience it all. Like, I want to get a few more podiums, but I don't need to like go and break records of like X Games medals. I'd love to go to this next Olympics, and it'd be amazing to be on the podium there. And then I think what I'm really excited for is just like getting back to snowboarding, because there's a lot of kids out there that kind of were in my position when I was younger that are very passionate about the sport, that want to continue and like go compete or go film or go do whatever. And it's just getting harder and harder to like get into that these days. So I'm already like, even without 100 podiums, I'm in a really good spot that I'm super thankful that I've like earned the following that I have and like gotten the respect from young riders that I have, that like I want to give back. Like I care more about that for sure than being an X Games like medal count holder. So yeah, like I'm gonna compete and like go hard as hard as I can the next couple of years, and like I have so much more in me, I know that, but I'm really hyped to like try to be a real mentor and leader in the sport as much as I can, even if that just changes like one life or 2 lives.
You don't need to have an X Games medal count of like 100, you say. But right now, what's your X Games medal count?
Oh, 0. I want to get at least a medal, at least one at like each of these events, like one like World Cup, an X Games medal, at least. And we'll see if those change, but go ahead. Sorry.
No, that was kind of where I was going, was like, you can't say you don't want to have a medal count at 100 if you don't have any. So the real goal, you want to have one in everything is kind of where it's at.
Yeah, one at least. Like, I don't see myself being like Shaun White and like trying to compete when I'm like 50, but like, you know, I want to do it enough to like say I've done some shit.
All right. Well, let's go to your final inappropriate question from Louie. Here it comes.
Snowboarding has changed a lot from the time of you watching snowboarding growing up to you now being at the top level. What is one thing that snowboarding doesn't have that it used to have that you wish you were a part of?
That is a good question.
Probably like tours, like going on tour with a sponsor, like a real tour. Like I got to do the overthrow stuff, which is real small, but like, you know, watching like Danny and the Dingo, like going on a tour with Grenade, or just having, like the Vans Triple Crown, like Louie was saying earlier, like having a real tour where he was just like on the road, like a low-key rock star lifestyle of just like, okay, like we're here for 2 days, we're out, we're on the jet to this place. Like that would be cool to experience. And it seemed like that was a real like impact avenue that you could have, where like, like you would just go on tour and meet people all over the country or all over the world. These days, it's just like you go to 5 places a year. You go to Sauce Bay, Copper, Locks, Calgary, and Mammoth, and that's it. Back then, it was like random halfpipe event in Killington, Mount Hood, and now we're in Mammoth, now we're in Tahoe, now we're in Bear, now we're going to like Dubai. Like Grenade really crushed it with that, so that would be cool. And Louie was a part of that, so it's probably where it stemmed from, is he got to experience that.
All right, so that is Inappropriate Questions, and that's our podcast. And looking at what you've done in your career, it's just the beginning for you. I mean, you've been doing it for a long time, but really, it's like you just got your first big podium. You have a trick that's going to get you on a lot more. Now it's just about learning bigger and better tricks, which is absolutely insane to me. But that's what has to happen for you to keep moving up and move forward. And it's going to be fun for everybody to watch what you learn. I look forward to seeing that, and I thank you for your time.
Yeah, dude, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I'm stoked. I listen to your stuff like all the time.
So that was time with Lucas Foster. And while I'd normally go on a rant about Lucas, this interview was over a month ago. And while I remember him being really nice and a fun person to chat with, the one thing that really stuck out to me was that he thought from a young age that he had to be the GOAT. That sounded like he was putting so much pressure on himself, but at the same time, he didn't seem stressed by that pressure. And really, at this point in Lucas's career, he's still on the way up to his path to GOATness. Will it happen? Who knows? But just thinking that way is a foreign concept to me. Like, yeah, I want to have a great podcast, but never once did I ever think that I needed to be the best podcast ever, or that I needed to work hard to be the best podcast ever. That goal was never in my thoughts. But it was with Lucas, and we'll see what happens with his career and his evolving bag of tricks. Hopefully, he'll be able to stand atop all the big podiums and then ride off into the sunset. That's the podcast. Thank you for listening. Please review me wherever you listen. And if you have any questions, concerns, or guest suggestions, shoot me an email at mike@thepowellmovement.com. Finally, please support my amazing sponsors. They are Peter Glenn Ski and Sports, Liquid Force, Best Day Brewing, Elon Skis, Stanley, and Outdoor Research. Have a great week, everyone.